Can you believe this 3D character was created using only free AI tools? Yes, it's possible.
Yes, it's possible.
And many people still haven't heard of some of the tools we use. In this video, we will show you not just the tools, but the full workflow for creating a 3D character, from concepting and 3D generation to retopology, texturing and rigging. Some run in the cloud and some you can even run locally.
Steph and Philipp here. Take your snacks, let's get started. Every time I always start with concepts, and here we do have quite good tools, guys. Many don't really know that Nano is actually free in Google AI Studio, and ChatGPT as well you can use for free. Yes, it's limited, but it's really good. My personal workflow is to create prompts with ChatGPT and create images with Nano. Actually, you can do both in Gemini because it's quite smart. That's already sort of preference. And honestly, if you have paid plan in ChatGPT, you can create the images there as well. It actually really good.
Alright, so as a first tool, I'm using Qwen Image Edit here. And you will see you can type that into the templates of ComfUI, then just run it and open it. And as you can see, I uploaded one image over here. And then I can also, prompt something in here like show full body. And then I'm using also like, front view and a T-pose, because we can actually feed image like Qwen Image 2511, a reference image, which is of course really great, because we can then take this one and generate then our image from it, from a reference image, basically to really get the look we are looking for. In case you would like to set it up yourself, you can then look also at the model links over there and then download all of them, so you can even then run it locally. As you can see, this is now generating our image. This might take a while. And then after some iteration, you can see that we get something like this, but we can further refine it even by going into the settings. So in case you're looking for a little bit better quality, you can always go inside the settings of Qwen Image, for example, then increasing the step size, for example, to get then an even more accurate result. And then once generated, you will see we get then our character here over basically, which is doing quite a decent job, I would say, for what we get here with Qwen Image Edit. So definitely something worth to check out.
After you create main reference, we're gonna need to split parts. This is very important step. I really like to work in Gemini as well here, because there are a lot of tools that you can use. There is a tool you can draw around and say like, I don't like this part, replace that part, or like I need the head alone, I need the gloves alone, boots alone, the body alone, etc. It's really easy. Again, like just draw around, create some stuff, and if you are not happy with how results are here, again, I usually combine it like with ChatGPT, like help me to create prompts, and then I just go prompt by prompt. Same way you can create multi-view, back view, front view, side view, all of that. Quite easy, as you can see. Like, I mean, just do it once, and yes, that's free. Just like that, I created a whole bunch of reference for the character, for the bike. And guys, it's very important to understand like part splitting, why it's done, like for more control, for better accuracy. With the right approach, you get better quality with less expenses.
All right, guys. So next up, we have image splitting, basically, because of course we would like to split up our image. Here, I took the one that Stefan created just to keep the looks consistent. And because it's working really well with the Nano, and we will use here a LoRA, because it's in segmentation LoRA that ArrowX created, and this one is really powerful, let me tell you, because it's actually able to then split our image, but it's locally and it's for free available, as you can see. So we need then to download the Flux client separation LoRA, as you can see here, and we will also of course link it for you down below for you to download. It's then really important that you then choose the Flux client template, but the workflow will be also linked down below, and you will see that I plugged in here the Flux to client separation LoRA, basically. It's then important that you put in the text box something like separate the head, separate his body, and so on, and his gloves, and so on. And once you have done that, we can then already run our workflow and then wait for the result. All right, and once done, you will see that it did a really good job, I would say, like separating his head, his body, and so on. Just remember to always put the separate mark in there, but look at this, guys. I mean, it's really cool how consistent it's splitting the image and all the parts we need. And you can use that for any object, basically, entirely for free locally, which I think is really cool to use utilize the power of Flux client. So definitely make sure to check it out and let us know in the comments what you think about it.
To generate 3D, there is no brainer, is Hunyuan 3.1. Again, there is Chinese version and there recently is Hunyuan global version. It has everything to get started creating 3D. And again, like it's free. You get 20 credits per day, but you can create few accounts and get pretty much a lot of generation. And it supports like 8 multi-view. Here you can choose the poly count. Here you can create geometry only or geometry plus texture. For real production cases, there will be retopology and texturing stages separate. So I usually start with a high poly. And here's the results, what you can see, quite sharp, quite accurate, especially the geometry. To be honest, texture as is not really sharp, has quite a lot of issues and artifacts, but it's good. But for some simple props, it can be actually quite nice. But that's fine, we have another free tool that helps to make it sharper. As for geometry, it's very, very nice. And when you create it in parts, again, you can make each part good enough and sharp enough, like arm.
Alright, so next up we do have 3D model generation, and for this one I'm using the local best open source model at the moment, which is Trellis 2, and you will find a detailed tutorial in case you would like to run it yourself on my channel that you can directly check out here. By the way, you see I prepared all those reference images now with the separation technique that I showed you before, and once we have them we can now directly use them now in Trellis 2. So basically you can then load in the workflow, as you can see here. As mentioned, everything is explained in detail in my previous videos, and you can then upload the image like all of the different parts that we just separated. Once you have then uploaded it, it's also important to choose good settings. So here I'm using, for example, quite high settings to get a really hopefully a good result in the end. You can also adjust the step size and so on, as you can see. And of course we would like to have good texturing, hopefully, so you can also play around with the settings there, like increasing the texture steps as well as the resolution. Make also always sure to enable the remove background option so you don't get an error, and then you can just wait and let it process until it's done. I, by the way, run the model here and the workflow with the GGF Q8 for you to know, so low VRAM style, which gives me the flexibility that it's even faster and uses less VRAM than with the traditional model. Alright, and once it's then done, you will actually see this is our result. It's not perfect, but we don't care too much about the texturing yet because we will do that anyways in one of the next steps. But you will see that we have here the models. We have like small holes, but they are actually filled even though they look like holes. This is sometimes happening with you know, local open source models, as you can see here, but we can easily fix that in Blender, what I'm also going to show you. So just keep that in mind while you're using it, that this might happen, but you can always rerun the generation unlimited because obviously it's free and open source. So yeah, definitely play around with it. Same step we will do actually, of course, now with all the other steps. So for example, also uploading his glove, and then we can do the same treatment again by just running it through the workflow and then you know, look at the results. Just as a note, you can of course also use Trellis 2 multi-view feature, as you can see here. This is what I did for the tire. So I'm uploading here the side view and the front view of the tire, so we really get the shape right. And just make sure to then disable the other images that you don't need, and then make sure to, you know, enable the background remover process, and then you are almost ready to go to run it. Also make sure, of course, to then disable also the background remover nodes that you don't need, and then you can basically run the workflow, and this is then basically the result we get out of it, so, which I think is pretty neat. It hallucinates some details in the middle, as you can see, but this is sometimes something we have to live with for now. But anyways, I think it's great that it's still capturing like most of the details correct, which I think is really nice in this case. Same thing we do then of course for our motorbike as well, as you can see here, and also when switching to the normal mode, you will see that we get then here this model basically that you know, we can then further refine later on. And same with our character, so we're choosing here our full body because we need it as well, and then we can generate it here mostly for the body, but we were going to split the parts also later on in Blender. Just something to keep in mind, just to have a base texture we can then work off from. Now before we move on to talk about retopology and UVs, let us introduce you to 3D AI Studio, who are also sponsoring today's video and is our honest recommendation segmentation. And there are some really good reasons why it's one of the best options out there at the moment. Because they have all frontal layer models in one place. Like for example, as you can see, Tripo, but also Hanyuan and Meshi 6, as you will see here. And you can not only generate 3D models with it, but also, for example, you can generate images with it using the latest state-of-the-art models like Nano Banana, but also Image Gen 3, Image Gen 4 and so on, which I think is really cool. You can also edit images, and there are several other tools related to 3D that you can directly use then for creating the best models possible. You can also directly upload concepts that we also used in this video and generate detailed 3D models from it. They basically collected every 3D AR tool for creators and put them all in one place at your convenience. So you can, for example, generate a 3D model with Hanyuan, texture it with Meshi, and retopologize it with Tripo, which is of course extremely powerful. In addition to that, they also have a mesh segmentation, smart low poly, as you can see, texture painter tool, and much more. And you will find a direct link with a discount code in the video description in case you would like to check it out yourself.
And as a final action of generation, I usually bring it all to Blender, combine align things together. Like in sculpting mode, it's quite easy to do again. Like you can add details, remove details, smoothen details, whatever, like combine things. And that's how I actually get to my perfect high poly model, which can be used for baking, which can be used for retopology and stuff. And since we have quite good inputs, you don't really need a whole bunch of tools in Blender. I use 3 to 4 brushes and masking to do all the job, like combine things together, polish it, and move to the next step.
Alright, and once we generated then all our 3D models, we can then also bring them into Blender, as you can see here. So I'm importing all parts basically that we need, as well as all our other models. You will, by the way, always find them in the ComfyUI output folder. And I will then I will go ahead and just mask the parts that I want to get removed, because we're replacing them with the objects that we generated separately. So for example, his hands. So I will choose here the box mask or lasso mask tool, as you can see here, to further refine the selection. And you can go here really into detail until you're happy with your selection basically. And once you have that, you can then go to mask and then hit mask, slice and fill holes. And then you will see that we can easily remove our head in sculpting mode basically, to then really get only our body isolated, which I think is also really cool, because we can then later combine it with the separated parts that we generated separately basically to generate more details. One important note is, by the way, that you always merge the vertices. So you can go into edit mode and then hitting right click and merge vertices, as you can see here, because they are not merged by default. So that's really important. And once you have that, we can then go into the sculpting mode as well to refine those issues and holes that you can see here basically. One way to fix any outstanding holes is also that we go back into the object mode and then apply a remesh modifier, like for example voxel remesh in Blender. So to do that is you go to the modifier, then you search up remesh, and then we can choose here a small voxel size, and this will then basically enable you get a way cleaner result, as you can see here. And you can then apply the modifier and then go from there, and you will then have a mesh without any big holes or something like this.
And next step, which is retopology or low poly, also take place in Hanyuan. But now we need to go to 3D Studio. In 3D Studio, there's like 2 workflow. We can choose character who work with character, or props if we work with props. And there is a tab called retopology. And there's also plenty of tools. We're gonna need retopology. So the cool thing here is that you can upload your model, just export it as FBX, OBJ or GLB, import it here and choose the settings. You cannot control the exact poly count outputs, but you can control the density with the settings. And of course, version 1.5. And look at the results. I mean, they're really, really good. I'm gonna be honest, it fails sometimes. I would say 50-50, it can fail. But that's not a problem. You have credits for free. Just redo that 1-2 times until you get the good results. And yeah, we can export that. Same way I created everything, and you can see. And to be honest, low poly with Hanyuan is very, very good. It is top 2 according to Top 3D AI Arena, beating plenty of paid tools except Tripo. Also, nice thing about Hanyuan retopology that this model really fits on top of the high poly that you use to produce this one. It's not just generating something, it actually generates on top, which allow you later to do baking from high poly to low poly if you want. Is this mesh 100% good for production? Of course, no. I would say you can get as close as 80-85%, but you'll have to do some manual touch up, maybe some holes, maybe some problems on the wire. But as a base, that's insane. I absolutely love it.
All right, regarding retopology, I want to show you two methods. So first we have Quad Remesher, which is, to be honest, not entirely free because they only have a free trial version, which is lasting for 1 month. But I think it's one of the best options out there still at the moment when it comes to local retopology, auto retopology. As you know, like retopology is still a big thing that needs to be solved in the 3D AR space, but this tool is actually quite decent. So I think it was still worth to show you, and I will show you exactly what it's doing in a second. Here are also some good examples where you can see what this tool is capable of. So yeah, let's apply it now directly in Blender. And once back in Blender, you will see then once we install the add-on, you will then see it on the right side. And it's only important that we then choose, for example, the quad count here. So we can choose how many faces our retopologized mesh should have. It's also important to check, you know, in case we still have an uneven topology or something, so make sure to always remesh it beforehand. And then once you checked all those settings, you can then you could even enable symmetry in case you would like that, and then you could click on remesh, and then it will take a few seconds, but most of the times it's only a few, and then you will see it's creating then a retopo head section over here, and you will see then that we then have here our new topology. To show you now the wireframe, basically once you enabled it, you will see this is then the wireframe we get straight out of the box, which I think is obviously not perfect, but it's here now better than the high poly mesh that we get straight out of Trellis, and it's definitely workable for a lot of use cases. So this is definitely great to mention, and we can now do the same treatment for basically also our gloves and also the leg and also our body and so on. And let me tell you guys, this process is then, of course, going really fast. So it only takes a few minutes in case you need a quick model, you know, to be retopologized, instead of spending like a half day or a full day retopologizing. And once retopologized, you will then notice that we then have here our retopologized character. Sometimes we still have some small holes, as you can see here, but Quad Remesher will always mark them for you, and then you can easily fix them up, basically by filling them then with the Blender modeling tools. But basically this is the result we get straight out of the box, and we can then of course always refine the poly count and so on. As an alternative, I wanted to show you here instant meshes. This one is quite old, as you can see, but it's actually able to, you know, also give us a retopologized mesh, whatever we feed into it. So this is quite great, and it's completely local and free, and you can basically then upload here your mesh, and you will see it has quite an old interface, but still, you know, it's still an option out there, you know, to use it. And for a simple object, this can definitely be an option. You would then choose your poly count as well. You would then, you know, going in there and refine your mesh. And great thing is here that we can draw those lines around our object, and this will then determine the topology count, the line flow that we would like to have. And you can see you can do this around the eyes, the nose, as well as his ear, and so on, to then really determine where our wireframe should basically wrap around and so on. This is obviously still, you know, very rough and not by far, you know, production ready, but so please take it with a grain of salt. But, you know, for specific use cases, or in case you would like to create a game character that doesn't need like heavy facial animation and so on, this can definitely be an option for you.
Next step usually is UV, and we do have solution even here. And again, Hunyuan Studio. Yes, this is like an amazing hub of tools. This tab actually goes right after the topology. The good thing, again, you can upload your own model. My workflow usually is to retopology it first, check it in the Blender, adjust, fix, then drop it here and get the UV. And look at the examples. Sometimes they are really, really impressive. Same as with retopology, I recommend recommend to give it like 1 to 3 try and choose the best one. And sometimes you might want to do additional cuts in Blender. For some solid objects or like very complex object, it might fail or add like a lot of islands, similar to what Blender with Smart Project UV will does. Personally, I would not rely on this tool 100%, but it's very good as a base. And for some simple props, that level is actually enough. My workflow usually is to do some parts manually, some parts with Hunyuan. And then anyway, I gonna double check and verify it in Blender. And it also makes sense because in Blender, I usually do packing. There are a lot of free add-ons such as UV Packmaster that help you to pack stuff before you start texturing. The logic of packing is completely up to you to decide how to pack best. Really depends on how you are about to use this object in M Engine.
For UVs, we're using here the MOF unwrapper, which you will see that it's giving us better UVs than with the Blender Smart UV unwrapper. It's also free to use, which is great. And I will also link it to you down below. There's also a step-by-step guide how you can install the add-on. And basically, once you set it up, you will see it over here. We can then choose our texture settings. All right, and as you can see, we can then with one click create those UV tiles, which look definitely better than what we would get with, you know, just the default retopology method by Blender with the Smart UV project. And yeah, you can definitely use this then as an definitely valid option to UV your meshes.
Now, next step is texturing. And here we do have a really awesome tool which is still free called Modddif. We're gonna drop the objects to Modddif, and there are a few tools. Well, there are actually a lot of tools, but there are a few tools that I use pretty much all the time. So we're gonna need to go to texture mode, and here the process looks like this. You choose the reference image, you choose the view, you choose some settings such as mode, realistic, and albedo is very important. The albedo is actually game-changing thing. It creates textures that do not contain baked light or reflections, which is awesome for game development. You don't really need to prompt anything, just select a view and press generate. Then we have some image. If we are happy with it, we just press plus to add it as a layer. And just like that, you go side by side, generate, write image, in apply. It merges it very nice. There's also a multi-view option that will basically do that for you, but I really prefer to work with single view because I don't know, it gives better quality, and yeah, you can see how it works yourself. But that's of course not enough, and that's why there is a patching tool which works very simple. You just paint on top of the broken area, then again select the reference. You can always add more reference, like a close up to some area to make it more detailed, and so far generate the image. It will only affect the area that you highlighted, and we just again and we can just paint on top. Like this, you can fix problems, you can add more details on texture, and so forth. Recently there is an option to even generate normal map similar way, and this tool is truly practical. I would recommend even professional artists to take a close look on that. My team really love it. Pro artists, for example, create image layer and then use it as a base in Substance Painter, for example. Definitely a very solid one, and even when I use paid tools, I always combine them with this free tool.
Okay, great. And for texturing, and once retopologized and UV'd for texturing, I actually wanted to show you stable Projectorz, which is still really cool because it's an open source 3D AI texturing tool, and you can download that entirely for free here. It will do all the heavy lifting for you when it comes to installation. Only requirement is, unfortunately, you need an NVIDIA GPU that supports stable diffusion. AMD GPU is, by the way, also supported, but you can check out then AMD GPU on their Discord to download it and so on. And this is created by Igor Aherne. I hope I spell his name correctly. Probably not, but anyways, he's doing a really good job with this tool, and yeah, thanks to him we have it, so we can actually texture our meshes, as you can see here. And once you have it installed, as you can see, I imported my character in here. Then we can choose here an IP adapter to upload then our reference image, which is our head. And once this is loaded in, as you can see here, we can then already hit generate art and then the gen art button. And as you can see, it will then apply the texture to our face, which is of course really cool because you can see that it directly projects it onto our head, which is of course great from this one perspective. And then we can further refine it and then uploading a side profile of him, for example, here. And great thing is as well, once you projected it, you can then also, you know, make tweaks around it, that you, for example, draw then a mask around that by choosing the colored brush and no color. And then you can basically, paint on the mesh where you would like to regenerate. As you can see here, you can also clear your selection and then, you know, really refine the texture as much as you want, and then paint on the mesh to, you know, really get the refinement here. And then once regenerated, you will see that it then only regenerates the mask that we just projected. And then once done, we can then repaint our mask over here basically with the details that we need. And this is basically, you can do that then for any part. So just make sure to always export it out of Blender as an OBJ file, for example, and then you can directly, texture it from here. As an alternative, you can also use, for example, Trellis 2, of course, with the mesh texturing node that you see here. There will also be the workflow free to download down below in the video description. But basically, you can also upload then the remeshed head with the UVs that you have. No worries, it will keep it. It will keep the UVs have attached, and you can then also upload here with the correct settings. Upload your image and then hit run. And this works in some cases better, in some cases not. Here, I think it's doing an okay job in the front, but you will see obviously some flaws when you also show the sides and so on. So definitely something, to keep in mind, that you can definitely give this a try. Maybe even with multi-view texturing, that you can also use in Trellis 2 to do that. Just check out my multi-view video that I created, that is also linked here. But basically, this is also just to show you this as a valid approach, how you can retexture your mesh here as well. In the end, I still used, and Stefan will show you this in detail, but in the end I still used Modddif for final tweaks and texturing, because it's really the best tool out there at the moment, I would say. And with the free method that we have for 2K texturing, we can achieve very nice results already. So I can definitely highly recommend it to check it out.
And before we can move it to the game engine, of course, we're gonna need to rig it. The good news for characters is that we do have amazing tools such as Mixamo and Accurig. Mixamo is a bit simplified, Accurig is more professional, and I really prefer it over Mixamo because it gives more accuracy. That's why it's Accurig, right? The process here is a bit longer. You need to set markers on the body. It's way more markers than in Mixamo. Then you need to do that for each hand, set the fingers right, but again, that is in exchange of more accurate result. You can also check the poses and set the pose offsets, which is actually quite useful for non-standard proportions. But for me, really, the main feature here that saves quite a lot of time is that you can export for Unreal Engine right away, or for Unity with the right skeleton. Super nice to have. But to be honest, whether that's simple or complicated character, usually you need to know how to refine those weights in Blender or any other software, because they do a very solid base, and sometimes you might get as close as 95% and you're happy with everything. But there's always some hiccup that you want to address. Rigging really is one of the weakest parts, but it's not that difficult to learn how to fix weights in Blender, for example. You'll really just need to know few tools, and it will help you to fix 90% of your problems.
And then last but not least, when our character is done with texturing, and when we are done with texturing and so on, we can also upload our character, of course, to Mixamo. Then you can choose here the handles and so on to rig our character, which is still a very valid option to use Mixamo, because it's a really fast way to actually rig and animate your model. And then once you have him here, I chose this leaning pose, as you can see by searching it in Mixamo. And then once I have that, you can also, you know, adjust the arm space, overdrive, and so on as much as you want. And once you then decided on it, you can then hit also download and then re-import your mesh basically. So, you know, just a file import and then FBX, then importing your rig character. And then we can also reapply the shader by just, you know, selecting our original character and then just reapplying the material that we need. You see that the UVs stay the same, so we can definitely use that. Then once done, I just decided, you know, to pose him a bit onto his bike, basically, that he is leaning against it, a little bit like in the reference image that we showed in the beginning. And then last but not least, you know, once we figured out the pose, I didn't just went ahead and gave him a bit of light, you know, for the final touch-up.
And with all of this done, it's time to actually stress test our character in Unreal Engine. So we're gonna export it and drop it into Unreal Engine. There is a third-person template where you can pretty much replace your character, especially if you did a skeleton and Accurig, and retarget animations very quickly. So I'm gonna do that quickly for you, and here is the results. Here's our character, here's our bike. I also found nice toon shader, which is open source and free, that you can use in Unreal Engine, and we applied it here. And yeah, you can see the result. I think it looks quite cool. Just like that, we brought legendary anime hero to life into the game with absolutely free AI tools. That was Steph Philipp. We hope you enjoyed the video. Definitely let us know what you think about it, and see you in the next one.